It's not legal advice, although I'm an attorney, so you can ask him anything you want. Done ready?
Yeah.
There's one person in there.
I think we're missing one, but we'll go ahead and go. So yeah, I am Don Hammond. I'm an attorney, primarily criminal defense. I do some gun stuff, and we're going to talk a little bit about some legal aspects of California pistol law and concealed carry and things that we think you might need to know. So if you have questions along the way, feel free to stop me. I'm happy to try to answer them, and hopefully we'll get you the info you need to be safe out there. You know, I would always rather provide info and answer questions in this setting than have you in my office 3 months from now because you did something silly and now the cops and the DA's after you and we have something to go defend, right? So we want to make sure that you're safe and responsible out there and doing what you're supposed to do so that we don't have problems in the future. It says it's not legal advice, though I am an attorney. I don't know how my malpractice carrier feels about that. Please don't sue me, so we have to find out, all right? This is a summary of some of the things that were discovered yesterday, and then of course I'll put my own gloss on a lot of it and based on my experience in the legal system and how these things go. One thing we want to talk about, of course, is mental preparation, right? Human beings in general, and I hope everyone here, has an aversion to harming another human being, right? I hope none of us is going to wake up in the morning and say, all right, I want to go kill somebody today. Let me strap my gun on, right? That's not who we want to be training, and that's not who we think should be carrying guns. And I'll tell you, that is an incredibly rare thing. All right, I've done parole hearings for lifers, convicted murderers, helped them come home after long sentences, and I'd say 99.9% of the time it's some crazy situation they got into and somebody ended up dead. It's very rare that we have somebody who wakes up in the morning and decides they're going to go kill someone that day. Like that's just not a thing that happens. You know, there are various terms for them, you know, maniacs, psychopaths, etc. Hopefully that's not who we have applying and training to carry a gun every day. But something you want to think about, given that you're not going to wake up thinking, all right, I get to kill someone today, you want to think about whether you're actually capable of using lethal force, right? That's a very personal, individual decision and something to think about, because if you're carrying a gun, it's kind of unfair to the other guy, right? If you get into a fight, it's a gunfight whether either of you likes it or not. So before you strap that gun on, you want to think about whether that's something that you are capable of doing individually and under what conditions, right? People may have different tipping points, different thoughts on when they're going to be willing to do it. You are never required to draw your gun and shoot someone. That is never legally required, okay? So you want to think about what circumstances might be the case where you're going to be willing to do that. And we'll go into some examples of that as we proceed here. But briefly, I mean, think about, you know, is it just for your own protection? Is it for the protection of your family? Is it for the protection of, you know, your friend's family when you're out together? Or is it for the protection of any innocent person out there? You know, if you're pulling into the 7-Eleven parking lot and you see somebody pointing a gun at that 7-Eleven clerk, is that a situation you want to put yourself into? You don't know the history of it. You don't know what's going on. You don't know if the police are already on the way and they're going to pull up just as you're drawing your gun. You have no idea what's going on in that situation. Is that something where you want to intervene and, you know, be the good guy with a gun? You know, I don't know. That's your decision to think about different scenarios where you might be willing to intervene. Of course, firearms are a tool of last resort. We never use them to intimidate or threaten or to win an argument. Right? I don't get to tell you, well, my political candidate's better, and if you don't agree, I'm gonna pull my gun on you. It doesn't work that way, right? You know, you're somebody who hates the USC Trojans. I don't get to draw down on them, right? You know, we just have to you know, put up with that. Now, when you're carrying, you should be the most peaceful person around, right? Doesn't matter what you say about my mom or my sister or my goddaughter or whatever. I'm not going to engage. I can't have that argument because, like I said, it's not fair, right? I know it's a gunfight and you don't. And that's not a fair situation for us to get into an argument in. So I'm super calm. Nope, we're not going to engage in that. I disagree. See you later, right? We're not going to let it get to that level. Whenever possible, we choose flight instead of fight, right? If you can find cover, you can get to safety, that is almost always the best choice, right? The police would prefer a really good witness over somebody who decided to insert themselves in the situation, right? You want to try to gather details, try to remember things clearly, get good descriptions of people who were involved. That's all going to be really important in the aftermath. And it's more important that they would rather have that than you putting yourself in there and making yourself another suspect, another aspect of the situation they have to investigate and try to figure out even if you were right, okay? We only engage if there's a danger of death or grave bodily harm to yourself or the innocent, right? A clear and present danger of death or grave bodily harm to yourself or the innocent. And that's highly situational too. Who's the innocent party in this situation I just walked up on? I don't know. So, may try to diffuse it without violence, obviously, if I can, but I'm probably just going to stay out of it. All right, we'll talk a little bit about modes of carry positions. I think we went over a lot of that yesterday, right? You got appendix, 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock, 6 o'clock high. Lots of different areas. Something, shoulder holsters. We don't allow those in class, but they could be a good option for somebody who's wearing a suit or something every day. We don't strongly recommend off-body carry, so things like purses, fanny packs even, things that you might set down and walk away. Seems like a bad place for a gun to me. So you want to think very carefully about that. These sling bags are really popular, but you go to your friend's house and you set it down and walk away, and there's a couple other friends there of that friend who you don't really know. They decide that they're, oh, nobody's in there, let me see what he's got. Oh shit, now I got a gun. It's a bad situation, right? You want to be very careful about that. It's going to be better to keep it on you. Something else to think about, you should probably have multiple modes of carry depending on what you're doing that day, right? When you're going to be sitting in a car on a long drive, it may not be comfortable to carry the same way you would if you were walking around all day. So you want to think about what's going to work for you. When you're in a car, though, I still prefer on body. Maybe somehow secure it, but like those magnets that people like under the dashboard or things like that, for one, that may not be concealed because your permit is to carry concealed. And we'll talk a little more about that in a few minutes too. So somebody walking up looking in the window may see it. Well, that's not what you're licensed to do, right? But another thing to think about is if you get into a crash, now you've got a, 4, 5, 6 pound hunk of metal flying around inside the cab of your car. That sounds like a real bad situation, right? When it dislodges from that magnet and goes flying, I don't want that hitting me in the head. So that's something to think about. And another thing to think about is if the fit hits the shan while you're in that car and you got to get out, you leave your gun behind, now what you're going to do, right? So that's why I like it on me, so that if I leave the car because some crazy situation came up, I got it on me still, right? And I'm ready to respond and do what I need to do. Not, oh no, I could have done something about this, but now my gun's in the car, okay? So we really like on body. Let me see what we have here. Let me add a little bit in terms of transporting and those kinds of things. Obviously, if you have a license to carry, you can carry most places. On body, you can carry it, within your reach in the car legally. Whether it's a good idea, I don't know. But legally, you can carry it within reach in the car. You can put it in the center console, whatever. If you don't have a license to carry, then it needs to be unloaded and in a locked container and out of reach, right? So the trunk of a traditional car that has a trunk, those are rare these days, but that works. If you don't have a traditional trunk, you need a locked container where it's unloaded and in that locked container. If you're going to walk away from the car, like, I walked into Subway this morning and left my gun and unloaded in a locked container, that locked container also needs to be out of sight. Think smash and grab, right? You don't want somebody to be able to look through the window and be like, oh, there's a gun in that container, I'm going to smash your window and take it. So you want it hidden out of sight. Ideally, you also have it attached to the vehicle somehow. So some sort of small safe with a lock that goes around a seat post, something like that. So yeah, somebody does that smash and grab, they're not going to get your gun. They can take my pilot gear, they can take my work gear, but they're not going to get my gun, all right? Because I'm going to have it in a locked container, a little safe I keep in the back of my car, locked to a seat post, and it's safe that way. So people like to call my office and ask questions like, Well, these laws for carrying and transporting, all these, they seem to be for somebody who doesn't have a permit. But I do have one. How does that make it different? The answer is it doesn't. Okay, if it's either on your person or within your span of control, or it's unloaded in a locked container, and if you walk away from the vehicle, it's out of sight. So think about that when there are prohibited places where you can't carry, right? Even with a license. You can't carry in a post office, a school, a federal building, in a jail, past the restricted area in an airport, bars, lots of places where you can't carry, right? So you want to think about your day, right? What am I going to be doing today? Am I going to be able to carry everywhere I'm going to go? And if I can't, what am I going to do with it, right? You want to think about that locked container where you can have it attached to your vehicle and out of sight, and how you're going to handle that before you go into the post office, right? I mean, I think that it causes a lot of problems, because when is there most likely to be a problem with a gun? Right? When you're handling it, right? It's pretty safe sitting here in my holster, okay? But when I go to unload and reload and do all that stuff because I'm going into a place where I can't carry it, you're more likely to have a problem. So you want to think about that in advance, though. Because then also, okay, you've got a license to carry concealed, and now you're about to go into a courthouse or to pick your kid up from school. Well, now you're out in the back of your car drawing from concealment. Now it's not concealed anymore. You're unloading it, putting it in your locked container. Somebody sees that and calls the cops. Now we've got explaining to do, right? So you really want to think through your day and how that's going to work and how you're going to handle that if you're going to be carrying a gun. And you may choose not to carry some days. That's fine. All right, so if we're going to shoot, why do we shoot? Do we shoot to kill? Is that the plan? Shoot to kill? Make sure he's dead? No, we want to shoot to stop the threat. The correct answer is always to stop the threat, okay? If he dies, that's on him, because he shouldn't have made me shoot, all right? I didn't want to kill him. In fact, if it's safe to do so and I feel like it's within my skill set and whatever, I might go render aid after, right? Because I really don't want him to die, but also that's going to look really good for me later on that I even tried to help this guy after he did silly things that made me pull my gun and shoot, right? So we want to stop the threat. Once the threat is stopped, we don't keep shooting, all right? Scan, right? You want to make sure the threat is really gone before you reholster, right? And when the police arrive, what do we say? It was self-defense. I want my lawyer. I have no further statement at this time, right? You are a really bad witness in that moment, okay? Your adrenaline's running high. Your brain has not processed what happened. You're a bad witness. You just used lethal force. Whatever you say probably isn't entirely correct. It takes time for your brain to process that. It takes a sleep cycle or two for your brain to sink in what actually happened, right? You're going to be wrong about the number of shots you took. You're going to be wrong about what that guy looked like. You're going to be wrong about how many of them there were. You're going to be wrong about what the distance was. You'll be wrong about all kinds of things. Some of it's because you think you're trying to make yourself look better, right? Oh, I got to say he was closer because that'll make me look better. Oh, I got to say I didn't fire that many rounds. It'll make me look... Don't do it. Just don't say it. If you just don't say anything, you can't be wrong, okay? You should also assume that it's on camera. Almost every place you go in public, you should assume you are on camera, okay? A lot of police departments have traffic cameras around, cameras at intersections. Almost every business has cameras outside. You got Ring video doorbells on every street. Everywhere you go, you should assume you are on camera. And if you make a statement, I can almost guarantee whatever you say is not going to match up to what's on that footage. You're not helping yourself by making a statement. And the police will understand that too. Because guess what? When they have an officer-involved shooting, they don't make a statement right away. They get 72 hours, they get their union rep. There's a whole process there before they make a statement. So they're going to understand that. When you say, you know what, I can't make a statement right now, I want my lawyer, let's talk later. No problem. They shouldn't give you much flack about that. We'll get into aftermath a little bit more in a minute. Senate Bill 2, you may have heard of, made a lot of changes to California gun law. It was a response to the Bruin decision. All of the sensitive places aspects of that law are still on hold, which would flip on its head the things I said about where you can carry. But right now, it's still the traditional carry basically anywhere except for the prohibited places. private businesses can put up a sign that says, hey, you can't carry here, but you're allowed to not see that sign. You don't have to be walking around your life looking for a sign all the time, right? It's okay to not see the sign, but if they happen to notice, which they shouldn't because you're carrying concealed, but if they happen to notice and they ask you to leave, please leave. Anytime you're anywhere and somebody asks you to leave and you don't, you're trespassing, right? So you got an issue there anyway. If they ask you to leave, just leave. Don't have a fight about it, right? It's not worth it. Senate Bill 2 also changed the training requirements. So all of you initials are here for a full 16. All you renewals are here for a full 8. And that all doubled January 1st as a result of SB 2. It also changed some of the instructor standards, but we are in compliance. I know a lot of places lost their instructors over it. We have a lot of responsibilities, though, as people who are going to carry guns. Right? We have a responsibility to know the law, right? To track that stuff. There are a number of cases that are on appeal right now in the Ninth Circuit regarding magazine capacities and types of guns you can have and roster stuff and all kinds of stuff is up on appeal right now. As those things get decided, you should be on top of it, right? If the prohibited places thing flips on us from the Ninth Circuit, as it already did 2 or 3 times early this year, right? You need to know, because one day you're going to be allowed to carry in that grocery store and the next day you're not, right? So you want to know that. You got to stay on top of these things and be aware of what's going on. One idea is to join or follow the California Rifle and Pistol Association. Chuck Michelle and his law firm with the CRPA is behind a lot of these lawsuits. They're putting out videos and stuff very regularly as things change. You want to stay up to date. Follow them on Facebook. Stay up to date with what's happening. Or just, keep every day do a Google search, right? And figure out what's changing. Today's changes in California gun law, right? Every day. All right, so we have a responsibility to keep it concealed, right? You have a license to carry concealed. Keep it concealed, right? Don't let people see it. A lot of times we get questions about brandishing. If you're reaching for something on the top shelf of the grocery store and your shirt comes up and somebody sees your gun, that's not brandishing, okay? Brandishing requires an intent, or that you're showing it off to win an argument or an anger or aggression. It's not brandishing, but it's bad form. And, well, now you're outside of your permit because it's exposed, right? So that's going to be a conversation that's going to be uncomfortable if they want to have that conversation, or they could call the police. There are all kinds of bad things that can happen there. We have a responsibility to keep your gun in good working condition, right? Make sure you clean your gun, right? We've had people show up out here who are here for their second time. They took a class 2 years ago. They show up today, and they haven't fired the gun since then. They've never cleaned the gun. And or they show up with a brand new gun that's straight out of the box, never been fired. And well, did you clean it? Did you oil it? Well, no, I don't know how. I don't have cleaning supplies. Well, you should probably take that next step and go ahead and do that if you're going to be a responsible gun owner, right? You should clean it every time you use it. If you're carrying it, you probably clean it at least once a week. Keep it in good working order. Okay, of course, store it properly, right? If you're not carrying it around at home, it should be locked up, right? Especially if you have kids in the house. California law has very specific criminal punishments. If a kid gets a hold of your gun and uses it for something, or if a prohibited person gets a hold of your gun and uses it for something. So you have your friends over, you may not know their background and status, right? But if they get a hold of your gun and do something with it, that's on you. Criminal punishments for you. So keep them locked up, keep them stored properly so you're not going to have a problem. You have a responsibility to train, be proficient with your firearm. This is the beginning. Okay, this is the beginning. Please don't be one of those people who comes back 2 years from now and says you haven't fired your gun since this class. I mean, if you do, we'll train you up. We'll do everything we can. But you want to take the stuff you learned today and go practice. You can practice a lot of this stuff at home. Your 4-count draw, your magazine changes, your reloading. There's a lot of stuff, barricade work that we're going to do this afternoon. A lot of stuff you can do at home. Put the ammo in another room. We don't need any negligent discharges while you're at home shooting at the TV or whatever, trying to take out the bad guys. Okay, make sure it's not loaded. No ammo in the room is the preference. My wife hates it when I actually shoot the TV. Oh, wait, no. So don't, you can practice a lot of this stuff at home. You can go to the range regularly, but be proficient, right? We're going to get into some close quarter stuff this afternoon, but think about that situation in the mall where there's an active shooter, right? If you can't take out that threat and the bullet goes past him and takes out some kid, that's your round. That's you. That's on you. Okay? I don't care if it was a good shoot. If you hit the bad guy, it'd be a good shoot. But you hit an innocent, it's not a good shoot. It's bad news for you. Real bad news. If you can't hit your target, you shouldn't carry a gun. It's that simple. If you can't hit, you shouldn't carry. Okay? So we want to train and be proficient. Prohibited places we went over. Something that sometimes can be a gray area, right? They say don't carry in bars or places where alcohol is a primary item of sale. I say, well, I'm not looking at their books. I don't know whether this is a bar or a restaurant. As far as I'm concerned, I'm at a restaurant eating nachos. People around me are drinking beer. I'm not drinking beer if I'm carrying, of course, right? Can't drink and carry. We all know that. So you want to think about those things, though. You know, think about your plans for happy hour after work. And if you're going to drink, don't carry. And yeah, private places, if there's a sign or if they notify you verbally, then don't carry. SB2 is trying to flip that on its head, so stay tuned if that actually goes into effect. If you're stopped by an officer, they have the authority to inspect your gun and to inspect your license, right? You should always carry your license whether you're carrying your gun or not. Most agencies have that as a condition on their license. It's not a state law thing. But if you're pulled over by a cop, state law is silent on whether you have to tell them that you have a license and that you're carrying. Every permitting agency that I know of, and feel free to tell me if yours doesn't do this, but they put conditions on your permit that says if you encounter law enforcement, you shall tell them that you're a licensed carrier and that you're carrying. So what does that look like, right? I get pulled over, my hands are on the steering wheel in plain view, right? No furtive movements. Don't be trying to get stuff out of the glove box. Don't be trying to hide your gun, right? Hands on the steering wheel. Hi, officer. Nice to meet you. I am a licensed concealed carrier and my gun is on my hip at 3 o'clock. Then it's their move, right? Some of them may say, all right, cool. Don't go for yours and I won't go for mine. Because what have you just told them? You've told them that you're trained, you're background checked, you're responsible, you're a person who is not like every other gun they find on the street, right? They're out there finding people with guns all the time who they're not even wearing a holster. It's just stuck in their waistband. The gun's not registered. Doesn't even have a serial number. The guy's also carrying drugs. It's all kinds of stuff. The guy's got a rap sheet a mile long, right? Most of the guns they find are on people who are not responsible, not trained, got criminal records already. You just told them that none of that is you. You're a responsible guy. Yeah, maybe you were speeding or ran a stop sign or whatever, but you're making them feel comfortable already by not making them find that gun, when they're doing something else, right? I have a license, carrying my gun, 3 o'clock on my hip. Cool. They may say, all right, please step out of the vehicle. I'm going to take it off of you. No problem. You're in charge, boss, right? You don't want to fight them about it, right? Hey, no problem. You want to take it for the duration of our encounter? No problem. Because the next thing they're going to ask you for, right? Your license and registration, proof of insurance. Well, that's all in my wallet, right? So the next thing I'm going to say is, well, officer, I got to reach past my gun to get to that. Is that going to be okay? I'm just going to go for my wallet. He says it's okay. All right, I got no problem going for it, right? But they run that encounter. They're in charge of that. Don't feel like you need to jump out of the car and be like, oh, I got a gun, right? They don't want that, okay? Don't feel like you need to hide it in the glove box right quick as they're walking up. None of these things are good ideas, okay? Hands on the steering wheel. Hey, officer, I'm a licensed concealed carrier. I got my gun wherever, and let them take control from there. In the aftermath of an encounter, you're going to go through a whole range of emotions, right? It's going to affect everybody differently. It's going to affect you in 7 different ways that you haven't even thought about. And so that's one reason you don't want to make a statement right away. But, you may be elated, right? You may be like, oh, thank God I survived that. It's amazing. I'm so happy that I was trained and ready and able to handle that situation, right? You may be really excited that that happened, right? That may not look real good for you, right? If you're excited that you just shot somebody. But, emotions are crazy things, right? It's going to hit you differently. You could be in revulsion, right? You may be in the corner puking your guts out. Like, oh my God, that's a terrible thing that just happened. You may have remorse, self-doubt. Oh, did I really have to do that? Now you're second guessing yourself. Hopefully, eventually you get to a situation of acceptance where all right, that thing happened. I need to move past it. Post-traumatic stress is a real thing, okay? PTSD affects people drastically differently, okay? But it is by definition an incredibly stressful incident, a traumatic incident if you've had to use your firearm. You will have symptoms of post-traumatic stress. You should get help for that. Whenever an officer is involved in a shooting, they get help for that, right? They go talk to a mental health professional. Of course, you should talk to a mental health professional, and you should talk to your lawyer and you should talk to no one else. No one else has privilege. Your brother-in-law, you start talking to your brother-in-law about what happened and how shitty it was and whatever, guess what? That guy's showing up on the prosecutor's witness list, and he's going to get to come tell the jury everything you told him. It's not hearsay because it's the statement of the defendant. It's allowed. They can ask him exactly what you said. He probably won't remember it exactly. He'll say something totally different than what you said or what you meant, and all of that's going to go into evidence for the jury. It's a bad plan. You only want to talk to people with privilege. So talk to a mental health professional, talk to a lawyer, and anybody else that's like, yeah, it was a really bad situation. I'm sorry, I can't talk with you about it. I'm talking to my therapist. I'm talking to my lawyer. We're going to get this worked out. But, spousal privilege is very tenuous. It's not as strong as you might think it is. So, sorry, but probably don't even talk to your spouse about it. You want a privileged relationship if you're going to say anything. The legal aftermath, if death occurs, you should assume it's going to be treated as a criminal homicide. You should assume that you're going to be arrested. You should assume that you're going to be in on $1 million bail, and you should have a plan for that. Conventional wisdom is it's a 10% bond to the bond company. Think of that as an insurance premium. You never get that money back. So I know you're all carrying around 100 grand in your pocket that you're ready to shell over to my friends at Bad Boys Bail Bonds and to kiss that goodbye so that you can have your freedom for a few years while we work out the case. Right now they're a little more generous because of things that are happening in the bail industry. Sometimes they'll go as low as 5%. So, it's only 50 grand maybe that you have in your pocket, right? So you want to have a plan, right, for how you're going to access that money, how you're going to get your butt out while we figure out what's going on with this court case. There will also be a civil case. Most of the time you're going to get sued even if there's no criminal case. It's a lower standard of proof, lower number of jurors have to be on your side, and you should assume you will be sued for a lot of money. And you should assume that the lawyer is going to cost a lot of money, right? You're on the defendant's side of this. Nobody's taking your side on contingency. The bad guy's side, his family is going to sue you. That lawyer's working on contingency, which means no money up front. That lawyer only gets paid if he wins and collects money from you, right? You're going to be paying by the hour, $500, $600, $700 an hour. Who knows how many hours of work it's going to take to resolve that. Could easily be 50, 60, 70, 80 grand in attorney's fees by the time you're done with that case. Okay? So you want to have a plan, right? There are organizations out there that provide insurance. There are a variety of them. I think I failed to mention earlier, I am a critical response attorney with the United States Concealed Carry Association. I'm also on the attorneys list with the United States Legal Defense Network. The Armed Citizens Legal Defense Network. There we go. So I'm on the list with the Armed Citizens Legal Defense Network as well as the United States Concealed Carry Association. I have coverage from both agencies as well. It's not a bad idea to have multiples. I know USCCA sometimes gets a bad rap because they are a true insurance policy. There's a public policy against them insuring against crime. So if you're convicted, it is possible that they would try to claw back that money. My thought is, if I'm convicted of homicide, I'm going to prison for a long time. I've spent all my money anyway. Good luck getting that money back from me if that were to happen. But there are other agencies that are more like a AAA. It's a co-op type thing. It's not true insurance, so they can pay out the money and not have to ask for it back. I have not heard of a situation where USCCA actually went back and clawed it back, but it's in there where they could, if that's a concern to you. So US Law Shield, CCW Safe, there are a lot of organizations out there. Do your own research, figure out what's going to work for you. Maybe talk to your own insurance companies, talk to State Farm or Progressive or whoever you have your car and home and business insurance with. I got an umbrella policy, to look at all that and see if any of that's going to cover you also. Right? You want to think about that. It may be cheaper to go that way. Well, you want to take a look at that and see what's going to work for you. But the key is, after something happens, it's too late. Right? You want to have a plan in advance for how that's going to work. So homework and practice, like I said, you can drill a lot of this stuff at home. Practice your draw, practice your mag changes, practice things in your house, how you're going to get to different rooms if you need to. I don't have any kids. My plan would be lock the bedroom door, let them have whatever they want if they're in my house, right? They come through that door, it's the last thing they do, right? I don't have a reason to go clear the house or do anything silly, right? If you're in a different situation, you want to think about that, right? We're going to do this barricade work this afternoon. You got to think about hallways and rooms and shapes of your house and how you're going to get to who you need to get to, you know, if that situation arises, right? But you can do all that at home. Practice that stuff, think about it, have a plan. You can practice your presentation from holster, acquiring that sight picture quickly, especially for those of us with red dots. It's a different thing. If you're going to switch to a red dot because you think we're cool walking around with them, right? You want to practice that. Take a red dot class. Think about the differences. It's a totally different sight picture in a red dot versus iron sights. You can't just put it on your gun and think, okay, now I'm cool. I get to use that, because it's not going to work out well for you when the time counts, okay? Next steps, of course, more courses. You can retake this class. We have a CCW skills class that's a really cool class. We have a CCW combatives class. It's like the advanced version, where we do a lot of, you know, shooting from various sitting positions as if you're in a car. We do all kinds of different, you know, center axis relock is a different way of holding a gun, different way of aiming. You see Drew using a lot of that when he's shooting normally. He likes car a lot, sort of John Wick-ish style of holding a gun and shooting. So we teach that in the advanced class called CCW Combatives. It's a really fun day. So those are opportunities to come out and do this. You know, you can't do most of this stuff at a range, right? The stuff that we're doing here, if you come out any given Saturday and go down here to the range, they're not going to let you be drawing from holster and sitting down and doing all this stuff, right? So take more classes, you know, do what you need to do to be on top of it and be prepared. I think that was the most talking straight that I've done in a long time. Usually I get a lot more questions in the middle. What questions do you have? I've gotten so good at this that I just cover everything and no questions.
What's the best alternate for the USCCA?
I can't tell you whether there's a best alternate. I think that, you know, you need to look at each organization and what coverages they provide and what's going to work for you. You know, generally, in terms of insurance, your assets are protected to the extent that they're insured, right? So you want to have enough insurance to cover all of your assets, right? If you're a multimillionaire and you've only got $1 million of insurance, you've got exposure beyond the policy limits, right? So you want to think about that and make sure that your stuff is covered. But, you know, they all provide, you know, similar levels of coverage. Some of them may have add-ons for higher limits. You know, you want to look at that. Some of them will insist that you use their attorneys who are like on their payroll, because some of them are actually like lawyer networks. So you want to think about whether you're okay with them choosing your attorney, or whether you want to choose your attorney and then have them pay them. You know, USCCA has actually paid me for 2 cases now, so I know that they pay. I know that it works. You know, like I said, I'm on the list for the Armed Citizens Legal Defense Network. I haven't had a case with them yet, so I don't know, you know. I assume they'll pay when the time comes. But, you know, you have to really think about that and think about what's going to work for you.
Let's say you're at home and something happens. What does a 911 call look like? Sound like?
There's been a shooting. Someone's down. Please send help. I mean, you know. I mean, you might throw in, hey, there was a self-defense shooting. Someone's down, you know. But, you know, you might mention, hey, I still have him at gunpoint. Because, you know, when the cops show up, they might want to know that information. Or if he looks like he's no longer a threat, you know, feel free to put it away before the cops get there. Because you know the cops have guns, and they don't necessarily want to see yours. But, you know, if he's still twitching, and there's a gun near him that I don't feel safe getting to kick it out of the way or whatever, I may hold him at gunpoint. I mean, it's totally situational. You know, all of these things, it's totally situational, right? You got to make the best judgment you can in the moment, right? Yeah.
Home defense?
What about home defense?
Like, if you know they're there, and like you said, you would rather be in a room locked up and let them...
Right. So California has a thing called the castle doctrine, which means that if somebody enters your home without your permission, it is assumed that they are there to do you harm. So it's a little bit looser in terms of under what circumstances you get to shoot them. Now, you know, you got to take that with a grain of salt, right? I mean, you don't come out guns blazing, right? Could be your kid coming home, or you know, could be my wife coming home, or whatever, right? At a time that I didn't expect. You know, it could be a friend trying to play a prank on me, right? I don't want to shoot him. So you really want to think about situationally. You know, if I hear somebody in my house who's not authorized to be there, and I've got nobody else in my house that I feel like I need to go protect, I'm going to close and lock the bedroom door, and I'm going to be in there with a couple of guns, and I'm going to be loaded up and ready to go. They can take anything they want. I'm not worried about it, right? Hopefully if it is somebody I know and they're just being stupid and they come up to that door, they're smart enough to tell me. Because, yeah, that door opens, we got a problem. But in general, you can assume they're there to do you harm. If you've got to get to your kids, I mean, call 911 first if you can, but get to your kids. We'll go over some techniques for that kind of stuff this afternoon. But yeah, you get to assume that they're there to do you harm. In public, we don't have that, right? You know, California still doesn't, there's no duty to retreat in California law either. So if somebody puts you in that situation, you absolutely should try to get out of there, okay? Try not to use deadly force. But if you're coming at me and I feel threatened, I don't have to. I'm carrying, hey, sorry, you put me in this position, right? But I don't want to have to deal with that. The emotional, the legal, it's going to change your life. 100% it will change your life, even if you are 100% correct. You will not be the same after that day. So if you can avoid it, 100%. Yes?
You were talking about driving with a concealed. What about, is it legal to ride concealed or a motorcycle?
Yes.
Okay.
As long as it's concealed and you have a license. Yeah. I mean, the wind might blow your shirt up and then you might have a problem, right? I wouldn't expect that chippy who comes up next to you to be real thrilled about seeing that, right? It's a real bad idea to have a shootout on the freeway with the cops, right? On a motorcycle, that'd be fun, right? Yeah, yeah, bad plan. But yeah, keep it concealed. If you can guarantee your shirt's going to stay tucked in, or you got a shoulder holster with a leather jacket over it, I'd be comfortable with that. You know, that might be a situation where I'd put it in my bag. When I used to ride, I had a tank bag with the magnets that sits on my gas tank. I might keep one in there if I were riding and wanted to conceal. But then when I may also have an empty holster on my side. So when I get off the bike, I might want to just put it in the holster. And then I know my shirt's going to flow over it or whatever. You just want to think about these things, right? Have a plan. Because, yeah, that's a situation where you've got it in an unlock. I didn't have a lock on my tank bag. I leave it in there and I go walk into the liquor store. Well, guess what? Now we've got a problem, right? Now I've left a gun unattended in a bag on my bike. Real bad situation. So you have to think all these things through. But, yeah, you can, if it's a permit to carry concealed, carry concealed. Don't let anybody see it. You're good. Yeah.
How about going to a friend's house? Do they have the right to know that you have a gun on you?
I don't think they have a right to know. They have a right to exclude you from their premises. That's an interesting question. I'm not aware of anything in the law that requires you to tell them, thanks for inviting me over, I'll be carrying a gun today. Like, I don't think you have an obligation to do that. I mean, if you're hanging out for a while and, think about how comfortable you're going to be, when you decide to take it out and plop it on the coffee table, how comfortable they're going to be, it's all situational, right? If I'm going over to Edmund's house to hang out, I'm pretty sure I don't need to tell him I'm carrying. Right? He's going to be okay with it. He's probably going to assume I'm carrying. Okay? If you're
Asking what you're carrying.
right at the door, he's like, "Oh, what you carrying today, Don? Oh, that shitty Sig 365 again?" Yeah. He'll rag on me about what I'm carrying, but yeah, I mean, it's all situational, right? Somebody comes to my house, I don't ask, but I don't care. If my friends want to carry in my house, that's fine. You don't even need a permit, right? You carry on my property, I give you. You all have permission to carry in my house, unless you're there to do me harm. Okay, so yeah, you don't even have to have a license for that. You can carry on each other's property with permission all the time. Without permission is, it's probably a courteous thing to do. If you know they're anti-gun people, you probably should respectfully not carry in their house, right? But that's your friendship, not mine. I don't care if my friends carry.
When you're in the car, driving, right? Your carry has to be next to your body.
It should be in your span of control. So if you want to drop it in the center console while you're driving, legally, that's not a problem.
Oh, okay.
If you get out of the car and leave it there, that's a problem. Big problem. But yeah, if it's concealed and you can reach it, your span of control, you're good. If you have a license. That's assuming you have a license, right? And then, yeah, that's fine. just think about what how you're going to get to it if you need it,
Right.
right? And what you're going to, if you get a situation where you're going to be scared out of your car, where is it now, right? I mean, there's lots of tactical things to think about there. But yeah, if I'm on a long drive and it gets uncomfortable and I decide to throw it in the center console, fine.
Or sit
But-
on it, or
You sit on it. I mean, some people have an under seat holster. Those are, as long as it's secure, I don't have a problem with that. As long as it's secure. Legally, it's fine. It's your span of control. It's concealed. You're good. Something else that I usually talk about on day one if I do the talk is like loaning guns. Don't do it. Just don't do it, right? The law allows for a limited loans of 30 days to people in your immediate family, meaning your spouse, children, parents, or grandparents. Or siblings, I think, are on the list too. But you also have to confirm that they have an FSC before you loan it to them. So lots of hoops to jump through that you're not going to. So don't do it. When your brother-in-law shows up at your house and says, "Hey, can I borrow your Glock to go to the range?" The answer is no. Okay. Now, if you go to the range together, yeah, I can stand next to you and let you fire my gun. That's no problem. But I'm still there. It's within my span of control. But I can't let you take my gun to the range or keep it in your house for your own purposes. So something else to think about there. Any other questions? Ready to get back out shooting? Oh, go ahead, guys.
How about when it comes to using like experimental ammo? Stuff like that.
I mean, if you can buy it legally in California, then you can legally use it.
I have a question with that question.
Yeah, I don't know.
What do you mean experiment?
I don't even know what that means.
You're gonna experiment an experimental ammo on your experimental target?
Oh no, because I went to go buy some ammo last time, and they told me that one is preferred over another, just defense cases. If you're using it for self-defense.
Well, for self-defense, you usually want defensive ammo, which generally means it's going to be some sort of a hollow point type of thing, because it's more likely to stop the threat. Right? I don't carry that ammo because I want to kill anybody. I carry it because it's more likely to stop the threat. Right?
You want to use something that's reliable, right?
Right. Something you've shot before, something you know is going to work in your gun. I think things like plus P and those kinds of things are outside the scope of this conversation, but they're designed to make your gun run better, not to put more power behind your bullet. We can talk about those things offline if you are interested in those conversations. Do you have another question?
I did. You were talking about loaning guns and whatever. What if your girlfriend uses it and she doesn't have an FSC in the house, but something happens in the house and she just uses it? Are you responsible? Or?
Well, you didn't loan it to her. You're inside the house, and she's using it for self-defense inside the house. I think that's the least of your worries. You stop the threat. Everything. If it was a good shoot, which in your house it probably was, that's the least. You're fine. You're fine. You didn't let her borrow it and take it away from the house. And it's within your span of control, unless you're not home and whatever. Yeah, even if you're not home. But I mean, my stuff stays in a safe. My wife doesn't even have the combination, so that's how that goes in my house. She can't even get to my stuff.
Were you able to talk about it?
A little bit, yeah. So we have some brochures and flyers here for a couple of different insurance companies if you're interested.
So two of them. The first one, Delta Defense, which is USCCA. The one people who came yesterday already have them, or already have the brochures. Who wants one?
Do you have another question? Oh.
So grab one and pass it. The other one is called Armed Citizen Legal Defense Network. I'm also a member of this. It's more of a co-op. So there's a discount, but I run out of the discount code. Just write it down. It's called Shootsafe 25 off. Go ahead and get one and pass it. You know what? We forgot to get.